You open up the stove before I tear up this flame.
Respect our gangster.
What up, nigga?
I wanna thank you for being so blind. You didn't know that it was my time. They should have told you I am for the people and on my shoulder.
What up? First and foremost, shout out to Cuba, specifically for granting Asada asylum. You know, Chris Christie, fat ass, was trying to put the president in a trick bag, which essentially I didn't see no way for the president to get out of. But Cuba handled that itself, so I really respect that move, man. I think that's a dynamic move on behalf of Cuba. I appreciate it. You know, I'm thankful that Assad has been granted asylum. But there's been a lot going on, right? So outside of the Black Lives Matters protests, outside of the Hands Up, Don't Shoot protests, outside of the non-indictments, outside of the two young brothers who got killed in Ohio by the police, has been a shift. And the shift is that the other day we witnessed 2 slain New York City police officers. First and foremost, I'd like to send my condolences to their families. I'm not an advocate of randomly killing police, but I also don't necessarily believe that the story lines up the way the media is portraying it to line up. Back and forth this last week on social media, you've seen certain responses to those 2 deaths of those officers. What's interesting to me about that is that the name of the campaign for the protesters is Black Lives Matter. And we've seen a tumultuous amount of death via the hands of the police in the last, 4 or 5 months. And maybe, because that social media's the catalyst now, maybe because, it's more visible now, it's getting a lot more recognition now, but this isn't a new story in my community. Black people suffer at the hands of the police. That's just our relationship. Traditionally, that's been our relationship with the police. Whether it be death or just physical harm, one way or the other, you want to avoid dealings with the police because it's a lack of respect. But in the days since the 2 police were slain in Brooklyn, there's been a outcry, at least a national outcry, for the protest to stop. And essentially that throws me for a loop. It throws me for a loop because if Black lives really matter, why don't they get the same response? It's not an equal equation. It's not a logical conversation to me, right? So in the case in Ferguson, they painted Mike Brown to be a certain type of cat. And I don't agree with that portrayal, but let's say you do, right? Let's say you do agree with that portrayal. So the response to Mike Brown or the depiction of him being a thug creates a certain emotion to where it doesn't logically make sense to, praise him, I guess you could say. But or to validate his death. Let's put it like that. But Eric Garner, on the other hand, it was none of the restraints or constraints that the Mike Brown case had. Right? He wasn't uh, alleged to have stolen anything. He wasn't alleged to be a thug. He had no priors that justified that behavior. Matter of fact, from the bystanders, he had just broken up a fight. So when they murdered him in cold blood, because that's what they did, they murdered him, the response should have been from the mayor of New York City to call a moratorium on those behaviors. But he didn't. Not only did they not call a moratorium on those behaviors, but they didn't even indict the police officers. Right? There wasn't even an opportunity to give that man's life a fair trial. So when you say all lives matter, I'm confused. I'm only confused though because we play and pretend we play a game in this country. And the game is contingent on value. But in the US Constitution, they've already explained what the value of black life is. The only issue I have really is that we haven't awoken to the game. You're not as valuable as a white man. Not in the eyes of the US Constitution. Not in the eyes of white supremacy. Not in the eyes of white supremacists. In a country founded on white supremacy and white supremacist views, that doesn't shift until you shift the culture of the country. I don't know if that's even possible, you know. But what I do know is possible is that you can shift your own thinking. And if you shift your own thinking, that conversation essentially changes. It's an invitable conversation, you know. The brother Ishmael, who allegedly killed the two police in Brooklyn, also shot his girlfriend in Baltimore. Her name, I can't recall right now, so excuse me for not remembering, but from the onset of that incident, they made no mention of the murder that he caused in Baltimore. They made no mention of that. And the reason they made no mention of that is because they wanted to create a narrative. And the narrative that they wanted to create was black man kills the police. See? Y'all violent. That's the narrative they wanted to create. And that's why they've been effective in doing so. And the reason they've been effective in doing so is because that is the culture that this country is predicated on. Black men are animals. They're beneath us. And it's not just black men, it's black people. Women too. Y'all catch the same flack. You know, and it ain't just black. It's Asians, it's Arabs, it's everybody. It's whoever the fuck they want to be. Whoever they want to be the target at the time. It's just a flip of the switch. It's just a flip of the button. You know, 9/11. Arabs became niggas instantly. You know what I mean? Throughout history, man, everybody has had a chance being a nigga. You know, we specifically tend to stay in the position. But that's a personal issue. We stay in the position because we don't pull ourselves up from our bootstraps and we don't support our own. We're steady trying to align ourselves with the philosophies and ideas of this country. We're steady trying to align ourselves with the dominant culture. They don't want us. We ain't invited to the party. So the onus is on us. You want to change this behavior? Change your way of thinking. What happened to boycott Christmas? How many of y'all actually boycotting Christmas? How many of you all are not going to spend your money with the power structure? How many? These are the questions we gotta ask ourselves, right? Like, how far are you willing to go to get the answers you want to get? How far are you willing to go to get free? How far? That's a real question. So that's the question you gotta ask yourself. Also, as you can see today, I got on my Alpha Phi Alpha jacket. These are letters that I earned. These are letters that I'm proud of. This is an organization that I'm a part of. And this is an organization that I'm proud of. I'm proud to be a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Some of my heroes are members of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And in today's demographic, we have a show on VH1 that's berating sorority life. And as ignorant as that is, my biggest concern is the backlash from it. I'm more concerned about the backlash because the backlash speaks volumes about the disconnect in our own culture. For the last, let's say, 7 years or so, 7 to 10 years, VH1 has been airing depictions of black people that have been horrendous. And every week, mass numbers of people line up to tune into that bullshit. But the minute they aired Sorority Sisters, you all got active. You all said I would no longer accept this shit. But why was it acceptable when it was Love and Hip Hop? Why was it acceptable when it was the Atlanta, Housewives or whatever the fuck their name is? Why was it acceptable doing the Braxton Sisters? It was acceptable because there's a disconnect in our own community. And for those 7 to 10 years, you looked at television and said, that's them niggas over there. That ain't me. That ain't how I act. I'm not a part of that culture. Them is niggas. I'm black. That's what you said. I know it's what you said. But when they put them letters on them people, you couldn't deny the fact that it was you. It was a representation of you. And you were embarrassed. And you should have been embarrassed 10 years ago. This game is ongoing, man. It don't stop. Ain't no timeouts. Ain't no half times. It's ongoing. The battle for the hearts and minds of our children is happening the minute they open their eyes. You know, I fully believe that the answers to our freedom and our sovereignty are in education. I do. But in order to educate, you got to be informed. And largely right now, we're uninformed, we're ignorant, and we admire ignorance. That's the larger problem. We admire ignorance. It's time to get our shit together, man. The world is responding. It's time for you to respond. I'm out.